Welcome everyone. It's November 1st. It's a great day and I'm so excited to meet a new friend here, Gwen Croft. Gwen is well known in our community, so if you're part of the lesbian community in Asheville or the surrounding area, you probably know Gwen. Everybody does. In learning more about Gwen, I understand that it's because building community seems to be really important to you, Gwen, especially building community, a supportive, safe community for the lesbians in the area. Tell me more about where that comes from for you, why you've taken on that role.
Well, maybe because as when I was younger, it was harder to find community,
Mm.
and I had groups of friends in other areas that I've lived, but coming to Asheville, which is there used to be a group called Sheville, and I really enjoyed that, and I think it just went away. I don't know whatever happened to it.
Yeah.
But I got in, I don't know, Meetup came up as an option one day that somebody started it, a woman started it, and then didn't keep going with it. So I just took it over. It was kind of up for grabs, and there were several of us that talked about it, and it was kind of like, well, somebody's got to do it. So I took it on. And I think there were maybe 50, 75 members in those days. And that was back
Wow.
in 2009. And
Wow.
we've grown to, I think we're over 2,000 now, 2,200, something like that. I'm not,
Wow, that's a lot. So what's the name of the group and
uh,
how can people learn more? I can put up a little banner about that.
okay, it's through Meetup, which is a platform that we actually pay for.
Hmm.
A couple of $100 a year, and it's by donation. Members donate whatever they want to during the year or when I ask for it. And it's called meetup.com. You can start your own group there. It only starts charging when you get to larger numbers.
So
Uh,
what's the name of the group that you lead
it's the
specifically?
Asheville Lesbian Social Club
All right, that's what
on
it is.
Meetup. It'll come up in search engines as Asheville Lesbian Social Club.
And is the only place people can find out more is on Meetup, or are there other places where people
Uh,
can learn more?
we may be listed a few other places. I'm not aware of any right now.
Cool.
When we were kind of starting out, there were other groups, but kind of what has happened is because Meetup itself, the organization, is really good about putting it out there to larger and larger numbers. And like we used to have a group here called, well, we still do, called Lesbians in the Mountains.
Hmm.
And they are a group operating within Meetup, and they post their meetings on the Meetup site, and still operate under the name of Lesbians in the Mountains. And we've had other groups in the past that have just kind of blended into
I
uh,
see.
to Meetup. It's just kind of an easier platform, and
Okay. So yeah, just wanted people to have the opportunity to tune into that if they want to get more connected, since that's a big part of who you are. Has that always been, Gwen, like a trademark feature of yours, somebody who brings people together, or is that, a newer part of your
no,
evolution?
I'd like to think that's who I've always been. I mean, I've tend to, when I lived in New York City, I tended to belong to groups, lesbian groups and gay and lesbian groups in New York. I wasn't like anybody important or anything in them. I just always supported them and tried to attend them and work with them. And it just, it was just one of those things that kind of fell in my lap when I came to Asheville in 2009. It was started by another woman, and there were about 100 members at that point. And for whatever reason, I don't even know why, but it got abandoned or left. And it was looking for, it's funny, it was looking for a leader.
Mm.
And I meant to stop. I don't know if you're getting those sounds or not, but
Yeah, we are. Is there any way you can turn that off easily, or?
um,
Okay, well, we'll just let it be. No,
yeah,
it's
I don't
okay.
know.
Yeah.
Um, so
So going back to that, yeah, so you kind of picked up the ball
yeah,
when
it
you
was just
moved
kind of
here.
sitting there, and nobody else was doing anything with it. And I hated to see it go away because that's the way I knew about activities in
Right.
Asheville. So I picked it up and just started adding members as people wanted to join. In those days, we were under a certain number and we didn't have to pay for it. And as
Mhm.
we've grown, it has become a little more expensive, but for the platform and everything.
Well, thank
But
you for your leadership in that. I mean, it's important for someone to take it, and that's been a lot of years now, since 2009. That's
2001,
been
yeah.
14, 15 years. So what brought you to Asheville?
Well, I had lived in Manhattan for 12 or 14 years. I can't remember exactly, and was sort of ready to get out of New York. And I didn't really want to go back home, which was Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay.
So I don't know, Asheville. I was thinking about San Francisco, and I went to an astrologer, I went to a psychic, and I went to different people and said these were my ideas. This was my dream. This is what I was thinking about. And I got feedback from all of them. And, it really just came obvious that Asheville
Hmm.
was the place. It just has everything I want. It's in the South. It's got mountains. It's got community. It was still small enough in those days to get to know people fairly easy. And, and it's close to home, which was on the other side of the mountain in Chattanooga.
Wow. So it's a good thing you listened to the guidance, you know?
Yes.
Sounds like it was the right place for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, so it feels like the tree of your life is branching. We could go backwards or forwards from that point, and I'd like to go backwards first and learn more about your time in New York City. Like, what brought you to New York City, and how long were you there? What were some of the key components of your life or takeaways from that time?
Well, I lived, like I said, I lived in Chattanooga and I was working as an advertising. I worked for a TV station as a marketing, advertising and marketing department, and then worked for a company called Coker Tire that I moved into. And they had more national contacts because they sold tires for antique cars all over the world, actually.
Hmm.
And with that, I was working with people in New York, and there's still a magazine called Hemmings Motorway, motor cars or something like that, or Hemingway's Motors. I don't know, but anyway, it was based in Bennington, Vermont, and they had a big meeting for all the advertisers, like a whole weekend of parties and fun. And my boss sent me up there, and I was so close to New York, and
Huh.
all my friends in Chattanooga said, "Oh, you got to go to New York." And I'd never been to Manhattan before. So I bravely caught a train and went into Manhattan and basically fell in love with it. And I just, the people, the excitement, the interesting things that go on there. So, yeah, I really fell in love with it. And then I don't know if you want me to tell the story of how I actually hooked in myself to New York. All my friends had told me I should go to a women's bar up there because we really didn't have a whole lot of options in Chattanooga. And so I looked up one called Crazy Nannies, and I dressed up, not having a clue. I wore my advertising outfit, clothes, which Liz Claver and baby blue. I was so Southern, I tell you, it was really funny. And I went, excuse me, from Midtown to down in the Village by taxi. And I really had to work up some nerve to go in there, I tell you. But I did. And I was absolutely so out of place. Everybody in there were in black jeans, black t shirts, cigarettes rolled up in their sleeves. And that was so not me. So, okay, well, I'd spent money on a taxi and I was there. So I ordered a drink and I found a little spot against the wall there. And this woman was talking to a man and a gay guy. And she turned to me and I said to her first, I stuck my hand out and said, in my best Southern accent at the time, not knowing that that's what I was doing, but I said, "Hi, I'm Gwen Croft, or I'm from Chattanooga." And we just started talking and developed a relationship. And she visited me and I visited her. And that was the way I found a job in Manhattan and eventually moved there. And it's wonderful 12 years. I met some wonderful friends I'm still friends with. In fact, we just had a little reunion in Rehoboth Beach just a couple of weeks ago,
Wow.
and a small group of us that became really close knit friends there. So we're scattered all over the country now, but every so many years we get together and have a little. We call ourselves the Geezer Babes because we're
Because
getting old.
you're babes.
Yeah, we still believe we're babes, but we know we're old. So we get together, and our last one was in Rehoboth Beach this just a couple of weeks ago, actually.
So in your opinion, when does old happen? What makes you say that? Just curious.
Well, I don't really feel old, but I think 70 is kind of old. I go to things now, and everybody is a lot younger than me, and there's still a few in my range there, but maybe old's not the right word. More, it's mature.
Whatever word you use, geezer babes, old, mature, it's nothing to shy away from. It is a recognition of a life lived and
Yes, it
living
is.
a good life. So before we go into that more, which I'd love to hear more about what living a good life means for you right now, I want to hear just a little bit more about New York City. Are you still friends with that woman that you stood next to at the bar?
No, actually, that ended after a few years, and she's in a different relationship, and I hate to say this, but not allowed to be in touch with her
Hmm.
old friends, which that always bothers me. But I wish I could stop that. I'm sorry.
We've got our beeps and whistles. It's okay. It's a sign of the times.
Yeah.
We're doing our best. No problem.
Okay.
So and was that the first gay bar or the women's bar that you had been to?
Well, that was the first women's bar. There was a gay bar in Chattanooga that I went to a few times, and it was mix of men and women, and it was nice. It was fun. It was a community, but
Hmm.
New York's a much larger, more diverse area, and you could go. There were several women's bars in those days. Restaurants. Ruby Tuesdays was a restaurant and a bar just for women, and
Really?
oh my gosh, we had so many opportunities in those days. Uh, there were others, but that has sort of, I feel like, gone by the wayside. Uh, I guess separatism isn't as popular as it once was. It's not really good to be separate. There's probably more to be gained by having a closer community with everybody as opposed to being separate. Although I enjoyed that intimate time with just other women and still enjoy my time with my friends from there. Um, but
That's an intriguing comment about separatism and over
yeah,
time and how culture has encouraged different types of ways of building community. I really find that an interesting comment.
yeah.
Yeah, so you were there, and and I could see your energy just starts to glow when you talk about Manhattan. It's like, wow, that was such an exciting period of your life for you. And so then, what was your age range when you lived in Manhattan?
I think I left there about 40 in my early 40s.
Okay, and when did you arrive? So you got there in your 30s.
No, well, I'm thinking I was there in my 40s. Now that I think about it, I really haven't thought through my time
Yeah.
frame about it, but it was maybe late 30s to 40, or
Mhm.
early 40s or mid 40s,
Mhm.
and I've been in Asheville now, so that's probably about right, mid 30s or mid 40s. I've been in Asheville, 15 years or so now. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, so that was a thriving life then, and
yeah.
that was so much fun. And
Yeah.
so, let's talk about kind of this chapter for a few minutes. What does it look like to thrive in life in your 70s in Asheville for you, Gwen Croft?
Well, I love it. It's a lot like home. It's much, much more liberal than I remember my home being.
Hmm.
And that's one of the reasons I chose Asheville. I remember the psychic saying something like San Francisco, and I just blurted out Asheville to him. He says, "Oh, from what I know, that's very much like San Francisco on a smaller scale, being very open and easy to be in and that sort of thing." And so I thought, well, that's a good thought. I like that. And we do have. I think it's gotten a little too touristy for my taste, but we do have people who are permanent residences, have permanent homes here, who have come here from all over the place. So that's always important to me. Sameness is not that interesting.
Mm,
The variety of humans and the variety of people, whatever their orientation, is always the most interesting thing to me. In fact, I think I said earlier in one of my comments to you that I met a woman in Australia. I went to Australia quite a few years ago, and I remember sitting and talking with her, and she just was dead serious about this. And she said, being an interesting person is more important than anything else. You could be rich or poor, whatever all these other things are. The most important thing about you is that you're interesting. And I thought, well, I really like that. I want to
mhm,
be interesting and I want to be around interesting people.
mhm, mhm. So that's what this part of your life is about for you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, New York was very interesting, and I
Mhm,
wanted to continue. It's just the older you get in New York City, the harder life becomes.
mm,
It's just a difficult place to live when you're older. You're in crowds of people. It's easy to be overlooked and knocked over in crowds.
mhm,
Asheville's quite different. It's more car culture. I really enjoyed the Manhattan walking culture and public transportation, but people are much more respectful. There's more sameness of people in Asheville. In Manhattan, it was people. I loved it because it was people from all over the world,
mhm,
and I always wanted to travel the world. And
mm.
if you can't travel the world, you can go to Manhattan and just go stand in Times Square. You will see everybody from everywhere.
That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
so where did that love of travel start for you, Gwen? When did that initiate?
I actually think that was my grandmother's idea. She just absolutely loved getting, she didn't have the means or the money or even knew, about travel beyond East Tennessee. And anytime any of our cousins or uncles or anybody were going to Florida, which was where everybody vacationed in those days, uh, she was the first one in the car. It was a big joke in the family about, well, go start the car, tell her you're going to Florida, and she'll be in there in 2 seconds.
Oh,
And she loved it. But she just really I enjoyed spending time with her and spent a great deal of my childhood with her. And we just spent time exploring the mountains and Cades Cove back before it got crowded. That whole area was when I was like, 15, 20.
wow.
And we would actually, maybe even younger than that. And my cousin, whom she was raising, could drive when she was 14 years old. Back in those days, they knew that was the only way my grandmother had, it was a small town. They knew that was the only way she had to get him to the grocery store. So they just turned a blind eye to my cousin driving at that age. So she would just drive us all over the mountains and we would go visit everything and everywhere my grandmother wanted to go. So she was very interested in heritage. She wanted to go to find old graveyards and try to trace family history and that sort of thing. But
Oh, it sounds
yeah,
like you had a really special relationship with your grandmother and your
absolutely.
cousin. Tell
Absolutely.
us about that. Like, did you live with her, and what was it like?
Every chance I could, I was a middle child and I didn't middle children have kind of a different position than the firstborn and the baby. So I felt like, well, when I was with my grandmother and my cousin, I
Mm,
was the only child.
mm.
And I was very happy there. And I'm sure my mother was happy to have one less child around sometimes. It was a little easier on her. And yeah, I'd go stay entire summers with her. And I think I even remember catching the bus and going to school from there at times. So um, I just loved being with her.
How does your grandmother live within you now? How is she still a part of who you are?
I think she instilled in me the love of being in different places, the love of seeing the world. Her world was much smaller in those days, but I think her love of getting out and seeing other places really inspired me to what I am now as I've become a travel agent.
Ha!
And I love traveling and seeing the world and meeting all the people out there. It's just a very fun thing to do at this point in my life.
It sounds like also a healthy curiosity. Your grandmother, found joy in serendipity and curiosity and was in that flow and it really rubbed off on you.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Oh, that's really neat. I can imagine her in my mind.
Well, she
Um,
spoiled me too. So,
oh, that's really nice. So you had this little kind of parallel family, and then you had your nuclear family, your parents and two siblings. Tell us a little bit about that family and how they affected you.
well, middle child.
Mhm.
My mother, the firstborn, gets an awful lot of attention, and my mother really wanted a boy, bless her heart. And I think I was a bit of a disappointment in that I wasn't a boy, although I tried my hardest
Huh.
to be a tom. I was a tomboy growing up. And then my brother, who's about 22 months younger than me, was born. And he was always kind of a sickly child. He wasn't really healthy, so he demanded a lot more attention
Yeah.
than my sister and I. I'm going to get a sip of water.
Yeah. Yeah. Do it. It's just you and me.
I'm trying to recover from a cold, so
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
longer than the actual cold, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to take some hardcore daytime cough medicine.
Oh, I hope that helps. Yeah, it can be frustrating to keep
Yeah,
cough.
yeah, I think that helps.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you for being patient with me.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, so you were just saying, a little bit about your brother getting some special attention because he was not as healthy and you being the middle child. I'm curious about your parents and your, feelings and you being a tomboy and when you came out to yourself and your family and
well, yeah, I was always a tomboy and I was attracted to girls. I felt myself being attracted to girls in junior high and early high school. But, of course, I never acted on anything. I didn't really know about anything. I remember the first thing, and a lot of women my age probably remember this, but the well of loneliness,
hmm.
which have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's about a woman coming out, and it's a sad. I mean, I haven't read it in years, but I just remembered thinking how sad, because there wasn't anybody who understood it, or wanted. You were. There was a word for it in those days, and it wasn't a kind word. So it was always a little scary, and I never acted on anything.
Mm.
And I loved women from afar. And but I did get married. And when I was 21, and I had a son, which I'm very, very happy about. He's a great guy. I divorced my husband after just like 3 years because that wasn't work. That wasn't right. It just didn't feel right. But it did feel right to have a son. And I really I worked at an advertising company in Chattanooga, and there was a young woman who worked there that was gay, but she wasn't out about it. But slowly, we kind of got to know each other, and she took me to the first bar. There is a bar, or was a bar in Chattanooga in those days, and it really opened up my eyes that there was a whole nother lifestyle of way of being, So I started meeting other women who were lesbians and became friends and had a group of friends there. And I was I mean, that was probably my happiest of friendships.
Wow.
We had a closeness in those days. Um, it was still not very accepted to be out that much, but we'd have house parties, go to the lake in Chickamauga Lake and spend the day together and just do stuff together. And that was really very fortunate. That was a good experience for me. And they
Wow.
were friends until I moved to New York City, and even some of them came to visit me at one point or the other. But mostly, I left that behind and opened up a new life. So
Mhm, mhm. Now you're in your third chapter of the hopefully more to come, but in this Asheville life, and it sounds like you have this new community here that's really been not new anymore, but has been
yeah.
supportive to you, and you have been supportive to others. Now, when you said you were a travel agent, is that true? Are you a travel agent? Is that what you do
Yeah,
for
I
work?
was a real estate agent for about 12, 14 years. And I love that because I love meeting and hanging out with people. And I really didn't work all that hard at selling. I was mostly just, let me show you this. And, I was pretty successful at not being hardcore real estate sales. It was just, let's develop a relationship. And I enjoyed them. I just really enjoy people. And so I was pretty successful at that, but it just felt like time to retire. You can't work forever. But I was traveling anyway.
Hmm,
So I just, you know, decided to become a travel agent. And I've got a few clients that I've helped go different places. And I have been organizing group trips, women only. I am so sorry about that.
don't
But
worry about it.
group trips for women only. And I don't call it lesbian only because it tends to be mostly lesbians. But I don't, if a lesbian has a straight friend and she wants to bring her along, I want her to feel welcome. So I call it women only travel tours, basically. And
Hmm,
we've done
cool.
places like Belize, Costa Rica to start out with, and then Scotland was one, and Iceland was one, and I've covered about 10 or 11 countries so far. Now, not all of those were my group trips. I've gone on some myself, but I'm working on Antarctica, Peru, Machu Picchu, Galapagos, in Greece in the next 2 years. So.
Woohoo! Let's get on the Gwen Croft travel train. That sounds great.
When I decide I want to do something, I really want to do it. So
Yeah, and you wanna do it with others, it sounds like. You won't
yeah, I do
you don't
enjoy traveling with others, but the thing about there's a lot of ways to travel nowadays that people didn't used to consider. There are, you can consider yourself traveling solo and join up with a group when you get there, an all women group, usually all lesbians, and spend time with, in a group tour kind of a thing, and
mhm.
have all the amenities and the fun without feeling, you know, you're sharing it. It's nice to share it with someone. Uh, but I
Mhm.
also have just traveled completely solo, but I enjoy the group travel. But so I've created my own over the years. And Iceland, I went with another group. I felt like it was time to see what other people were doing. And I'm looking at doing, you know, some of these other places I mentioned in the next 2 to 3 years.
That is so cool, and when we were sharing before this, you mentioned to me kind of this dichotomy of interdependence and independence or autonomy and being with others, and that this was a dance and it was a theme in your life, that you're both okay alone, but that
Mm.
it's really important for you to be connected to others. Is there anything else that you wanna say about that? It seems like a really important theme.
Well, I hadn't really thought about it that way, but it is important to have a community to be a
Mhm.
part of, and that's one reason I really am proud of what we've accomplished with the Asheville Lesbian Social Club, because it's really inclusive. We only ask for your contact info and just share a little bit about yourself when you become a member, and we've never turned anybody down. Excuse me. Some people have been in the group almost as long as me, and
Wow.
we have new people coming, and we have people who leave, and they're mostly in Asheville, but they're scattered all over the country because they want to know about us before they move here. So
Wow. So it could be an incentive for some to actually travel to or move to
move to.
Asheville.
I get a lot of that. A lot of women are interested in coming here and they want to know about the community. And I just go ahead and let them become a member and say, see what we do. So,
Cool. Well,
oh,
we are yeah, we are like, can you believe that was 30 minutes? It's just flies
oh,
right by that time. I
you're
would
a
like to
great
ask you.
interviewer.
Well, thanks. It's so much fun. It's the best part of my day, best part of my month are these rainbow inspirations on the first Wednesday of the month. Thank you for being our guest today, Gwen.
Well,
Would you
thank
like
you.
to leave others with any words of inspiration in terms of anything you'd like to share that has informed your own experience that may inspire others along the way?
Well, the only thing that really pops out in my mind right this minute is what the woman said to me many, many years ago is be interesting. Just be an interesting person and whatever that takes. And if it means
Oh,
travel, if it means just reading well, if it means having a variety of friends, whatever that means to you, be an interesting person. That's all I can think of.
beautiful. Thank you. And it reminds us all to share ourselves because
Yeah,
it's only in sharing of ourselves that others will know how interesting we are.
absolutely. That's well put.
And
Thank
yeah, thank you. And that's why we think these stories are so important because everybody who comes on every month has got an interesting life and gifts to share through their lived experience. And it's important to AARP, it's
you.
important to Blue Ridge Pride, and hopefully it's important to you. If you enjoyed this episode of Rainbow Inspirations, please just click share and so others can see it too. We're always looking for new guests. So if you're someone who would be interested in being a guest, you're over 50 and you'd like to share some of your story, please contact us and I will put my email up on the screen. And finally, just want to say a big thanks to everybody for joining us here today and hope you stay connected to Blue Ridge Pride Generations Plus. Thank you, Gwen, and we'll see you all next month.
Very good. Thank you.